On a scale of life and death, others have failed to board an airplane that crashed because they were stuck in traffic. Did God stop all that traffic just to save one life? Less noticeable might be how life could have drastically changed had you gone to the game with your friend or taken your normal route home, but you didn't. Whatever the reason, there are many monumental or abnormal times when life suddenly changes. The question is, how much was God involved in it? The reality is, on many occasions, we might not notice God was involved at all. On other occasions, we can't stop giving God thanks for what he did. God does act in mysterious ways. After all, isn't every act of God, as well as every miracle, part of the mystery of divine intervention? Divine intervention.
A Missouri couple is thankful to be alive and recovering in our metro after surviving a small plane crash in southeast Iowa earlier this month.
Craig Comstock remembers everything that happened on Sunday, July 9th, when his single-engine plane crashed shortly after taking off from the Corydon Airport.
As we took off, I got about 200 feet off the ground, and I realized that there was a problem.
Craig, who's had his pilot's license for 15 years, had to think quick and remembered something he had read in aviation magazines.
One of the best places in that scenario to set a plane down is in a grove of trees.
So that's exactly what Craig did.
About 30, 40 seconds out after I'd made that decision, I said a prayer. I said, "Dear Lord, please let Mary, my wife, walk away from this." And then I turned to Mary before impact and I said, "I'm sorry, sweetie." And then we hit the trees.
Craig tells me, he says, "I'm really sorry, sweetie. Here comes the trees." And I personally thought, this is it.
But it wasn't.
Go through the trees, flap, 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 all those, and then we stop, and I realized I was alive. You know, I had blood on my leg and my arm was messed up.
Grateful to have survived the impact of the crash, Craig and Mary turned their attention to the next danger facing them.
Then we smelled the fuel and we heard the fuel running out the wings. And that was a scary moment because then I thought, okay, great, we made it this far. Now we're going to burn up in this thing.
She was able to get out to the ground, and we realized that there was fuel still flowing out of the broken wings onto the ground for quite some time, and I'm thinking, okay, Lord, this is it. I had resigned myself to the fact that I was going to burn up in a post-crash fire.
But thanks to the help of first responders and doctor divine intervention, a new chapter is just beginning for Craig and Mary Comstock.
I told the surgeons here at the hospital that fixed me back up, I said, "You guys are wonderful at putting back together things that you can see, but I'm here to tell you, the creator of the universe worked behind the scenes putting together things that you can't see."
Craig and Mary say they believe God has a purpose for them. They're not sure what it is yet, but they believe that's the reason they survived a plane crash, and they're expected to fully recover from their injuries. Aaron?
Finally, one woman's guardian angel. Take a look at this incredible video. You can see her struggle to cross the tracks. There's a guy from New Jersey. He comes racing towards her. His name is Joe Mango. He leaves his car, he sprints to her side, and he pulls her away. Look at that, with seconds to spare. She was taken to the hospital as a precaution. Joe insists he is not a hero. He says he saw something needed to be done, and he did it.
Divine intervention.
Began as a regular Uber pickup, wound up being a life-saving opportunity for the driver. Jen Holloway joins us now live from the Sunshine Skyway, where one man's quick thinking prevented a real tragedy. Jen?
You know, Jen, taking the time to listen and truly understand somebody's personal pain, it's not a typical requirement of an Uber driver, but one man did, Chad Farley, and in doing so, he saved a stranger's life. Call it compassion behind the wheel.
The Bible says a broken spirit, who can bear that? You know, and that's what he was, a broken spirit.
Chad Farley says he instantly knew his passenger was in pain.
This guy was obviously in trouble. He was obviously in trouble. This guy was just told that he got brain cancer.
His request was to be dropped off at the top of the Skyway Bridge, some 200 feet above the water. But instead, Farley pulled into the Skyway's North Pier parking area and began to pray with his passenger.
What surprised me is when I completed my prayer, he started praying, but his prayer was very awkward, jumbled, and he didn't know what to say, but it was like he was trying. And talk about a broken spirit, you know.
But before the man got out, Farley made a very smart decision.
Then I said, you know what, I want to remember you, so can I take a picture?
And with one quick click,
I took the picture and he gave me a peace sign, and I gave him a smile. And
as the troubled young man walked towards the water, Farley called 911. And within minutes, 2 troopers arrived just in time to save his life. Farley firmly believes everyone was in the right place at the right time by the grace of God.
like a chessboard, he put everybody in their place to be used to do his will, and the end result, the guy's alive. That's it. That's
This video shows 8-year-old Ryan Kim playing in the water on a beach in Hawaii. His grandfather gestures to him to get out. But when the boy tries to leave the water, the waves suck him back in. For a few seconds, Ryan's mother, Yura, and his grandfather struggled to reach him. That's when Christopher Tuncap raced in to help.
The minute I saw the second wave come, that's when I got up and I started sprinting.
Tuncap says lifeguards had already left Sunset Beach, a place known for its big wave surfing during the winter.
I dive in right when he disappeared, and I was just so scared because I'm not only thinking about saving him, but what's going to happen if I get dragged in.
Other bystanders join in, but struggle with the crashing waves and strong current. Finally, Ryan is carried to safety.
I thought that maybe my son will die. Everything turned to the white, and everything turned to like heaven.
Yura says her son swallowed a lot of water, but was otherwise okay.
I'd like to say thank you, and I'd like to express my gratitude to them.
Divine intervention. Divine intervention.
This is dash camera video from Ryan Ciampoli, a licensed EMT and volunteer firefighter for Crawford County. You can see he's driving down Highway 65 in Harrison when the back door of that bus flings open. Hanging onto it is a 4-year-old girl. She falls to the pavement and the bus continues to drive away. Ciampoli immediately jumped into action.
Obviously you want to leave her laying there, you know, if she's not in danger, but we're in the middle of a state highway, so I couldn't leave her just laying there.
Ciampoli says she was unconscious at first, but started to wake up when he approached her. He picked her up and carried her off the road, where they laid her on a truck bed in a nearby parking lot and got to work keeping her conscious and checking her vitals.
Once the adrenaline and the shock kicked in her little body, she started kicking and screaming and, you know, where's my mommy and things like that. So stuff like that's really heartbreaking.
It took about 5 minutes for paramedics to get to the scene and transport the child to the hospital. Her mother tells 4029 News she has a broken jaw and will need surgery, but is expected to be okay. Ciampoli was in the right place at the right time.
And never would you think driving down the road that something like that would happen.
On the road to Biloxi, Mississippi, a stray car hits a massive truck and a fiery explosion rains over the road.
Holy cow, that guy's dead, dude.
This footage was captured by David Fredrickson's dash cam.
What are you gonna do?
Focusing.
Got a fire extinguisher. How do you use that?
He stopped his truck and immediately got out to help. He ran towards the burning car and, to his surprise, he saw a little girl's head pop out of the back window. He got to the front door and saw the immovable body of an old woman. Somehow managing to open the door as others arrived, David and a group of Good Samaritans saved the little girl and presumably her grandmother. David later told reporters that he believes he was put at the scene by God.
A local coach is home after fighting for his life in the hospital. Now the coach is speaking out to 4029's Brett Rains about why he believes he's still alive tonight. It's new.
Coach Brian Sims was in the hospital since April. At times, he was in critical condition on life support and undergoing surgery about once a week. Now, Coach Sims is home, and he's crediting the power of your prayers for helping heal him. Late last night, people lined the street and cheered as Coach Brian Sims finally came home from the hospital.
It was awesome. I mean, just the support I have from the community has just been unreal. I mean, it's been great. It's helped me get through all this.
The offensive line coach and head track coach was battling Stevens-Johnson syndrome and toxic epidermal necrolysis, a severe skin reaction to medication that left most of his body covered in painful blisters as if he'd been burned. At several times, he was near death.
I never thought it would come to where I'm at now. A lot of it, especially the worst parts, I don't even remember.
Pretty much every complication that you could get, he had. Renal failure, respiratory failure. We knew we would eventually get home from Tulsa, but at more than one point we were afraid that he might not be with us.
Thousands of people across the country and across the world prayed for Sims to live. And while often his diagnosis is fatal, this time it was not. Sims gives credit to God, his doctors, and the power of your prayers.
That's one reason I think I pulled through all this.
And I would get messages on Facebook and they would say, you know, I felt a strong need to get up and pray. You know, it would be in the middle of the night at 1 or 2. And it would be in a moment that we were in a life-threatening situation.
The road to recovery will not be easy, but today, Sims is glad to be home with his family.
Well, a family celebrating what they're calling a miracle.
It really is. A husband on dialysis for a year and a half after his kidneys stopped working, then getting word from doctors last week his kidneys started working again.
I know. Kelly Rinke joins us from the newsroom with a WATE 6 on Your Side spotlight. Kelly, you spoke with a couple about their good news. I can't even imagine how they're feeling right now.
Yeah, well, of course they're shocked, but really so happy. Doctors told the husband, Danny, that if he was on dialysis for more than 6 months, so there really was no chance that his kidneys would work again. But that didn't stop the Terrys from giving up hope.
Danny Terry and his wife Linda are relaxing and enjoying a summer day in Maryville, something they haven't done in a while.
We didn't think it was anything real serious. We thought it was just cold because he had upper respiratory.
But it was serious for Danny, spending most of the last year and a half at UT Medical Center.
Come to find out he had congestive heart failure and kidney failure.
A man who had never been to the hospital, now on dialysis and the transplant list for a kidney.
People come visit me, I didn't know that's how sick I was.
Linda then gets advice to post on social media, asking if anyone felt called to donate a kidney. 5 people from church offer.
People to offer to give me a kidney, it means a lot.
But to their disappointment, none of them are a match.
Our preacher said, don't lose hope.
A glimmer of hope came. A few months ago, Danny starts to feel a little bit better, so doctors run a test.
They called back and said, you don't have to do dialysis anymore. Your kidneys are working.
And then this week, doctors say something else unprecedented. Danny doesn't need to be on the transplant list anymore.
She said, I'm so happy for you, because she said, it just doesn't. She kept saying, smiling, just saying, this doesn't happen.
Why me?
Yeah, but God had a reason.
Thinking the reason is to inspire others to not give up hope.
Maybe this will touch somebody and, you know, maybe there's somebody else out there that will get hope from it.
Texas teenager sharing a deeply personal story tonight of dying, seeing Jesus, and then coming back to life.
And he is describing what he saw and heard during those minutes without oxygen.
Zach Clements is a strong teenager. He's a high school football player at Victory Life Academy in Brownwood, Texas, and obviously he's got a sense of humor. By all measures, he's a healthy young man, which is why it's still a shock.
I was running and I had collapsed.
That he dropped to the ground during PE class last week.
Not sure why.
It was a sudden cardiac arrest, according to his doctors. His mother was immediately called and even beat the ambulance to the emergency room.
When they opened the ambulance door,
He was blue, and they were on top of him doing chest compressions.
Technically and medically, he was dead.
And they said that I was without a heartbeat for 20 minutes.
And just as hospital staff were ready to make it official, they got a pulse. He was airlifted to Cook Children's Hospital in Fort Worth and woke up days later. His recovery has been incredible, but even more mind-blowing is the story he tells of what he saw during the time many believed he had died.
I saw a man that had longish kind of ruffled hair with a kind of thick beard, and it didn't take me long to realize that that was Jesus.
He's describing what his family is convinced was a near-death miracle.
I went up to him and he put his hand on my shoulder and told me that everything would be all right and not to worry. I was just calm and just at peace.
The cynics out there will say, you've seen too many movies.
And for him to wake up and tell us something that he experienced like that, it's just, I mean, you can't explain it. It's not humanly possible to explain it.
Billy Clements is the teen's father. He says accepting his son's experience as a miracle is the only thing that makes sense.
And that's what we're standing on. That was a rhema word from God that we got, and we're going to hold on to that.
Do you think this is something that might strengthen your faith?
It is. I heard angels singing in the background.
It may be a medical mystery for the doctors, but for this family, there's no question it was divine intervention.
I'm just glad he decided to let me have my baby back.
In Fort Worth, Ken Molestina, CBS 11 News.
20 minutes, wrap your head around that.
It's so tough to wrap your head around.
You get one life unless you're a local 25-year-old who says he is on his fourth. Davidson Tendry has the story.
Rain has kept games away from the softball diamond today, but whether or not Landon Whitley is able to toss the ball, this is where he feels closest to his late father.
And it felt like every time I was there on the field, even though I couldn't see him physically, it felt like inside of me he was there.
In 1997, all was well. Landon and his parents were driving home from church when they were T-boned at a Mint Hill intersection. Landon lost his father that day. His mother was severely hurt, but survived.
I didn't understand where God was at to allow the tragedy.
Landon's father was driving the vehicle. His seat flew back, crushing Landon in the back seat. Initially, medics couldn't even tell there was a child in the car.
But one of the workers found a child's shoe, and when they found his shoe, they started looking for the body that matched.
3 times that day, Landon died, flatlined. Paramedics worked to save him. He says each time he went to heaven where he was with Jesus, angels, his father, and 2 siblings he had never known existed.
My mom had 2 miscarriages before me that I had never known about, never heard about. I was able to see them.
Landon says his trip to heaven was a short one. He says Jesus told him it wasn't his time. So back to earth where it took time for Landon's injuries to mend.
We got 23 metal plates in my head. My nose was reconstructed out of the back part of my skull, and I can't see out of my left eye, or better yet, it's all blurry.
His mother, Julie, her scars are more emotional, and to cope, she wrote a book detailing the family's healing process over the years.
These days, I can thank God for giving me the strength to get through it. I didn't see the strength when I was going through all that. I saw the challenges and the hurt.
Okay, so right now we're driving up to the intersection where Landon's accident happened, and Landon, just tell me, what goes through your mind when you approach this scene?
I pass by here almost every day, and of course it sparks back memories from the past, but at the same time it just became part of my normal everyday life of going through here.
Landon is even to the point where he can make light of his situation.
Someone could say, Landon, you and I are about to have a come to Jesus talk. I was like, well, I've already came to him 3 times.
Now in his mid-20s, baseball is replaced with softball, and he proudly wears the number his dad once gave him.